Hey folks, Coach Patrick here, Endurance Nation, back with another weekly coach video cast slash podcast. Every week, I sit down with you to talk to you about a core concept that's valuable from inside Endurance Nation. We are a community of endurance athletes from across the globe who share knowledge and we support one another. And we help each and every one of us achieve our own epic goals. The idea being that together we are smarter, stronger, and faster than any one of us could be on our own. It's a great community, a great supportive place to be. And our athletes are all doing crazy types of events every weekend. I find out about something new. Just this past weekend, I saw someone did a 5-day gravel stage race in Oregon, which is insane and amazing. I can't wait to learn more about it. But we also have athletes doing all manner of events as well. So if you are an endurance athlete, if your event has a finish line, if it is a big challenge, if there's going to be endorphins involved, Endurance Nation is there. We'd love to meet you, hear from you, and have you join our team and become part of our story. All right, with that said, let's talk today a little bit about the topic 48 hours to boost volume. So one of the biggest challenges that endurance athletes have is scheduling. So it's not about the race itself. And if there's a will, there's a way, even though sometimes these events are financially expensive or logistically challenging, because the gauntlet has been thrown, you're ready. You're ready to dive in there, you're ready to do the work. The real challenge begins when the rubber meets the road. That's why a lot of people reach out for coaching. It doesn't always have to be that way. Part of my role here inside Endurance Nation is not only to share my expertise and to help athletes who need it, but also to provide macro level guidance like today's lesson so that you can make better, more informed decisions on your own. And when it comes down to this sort of concept of volume, well, we've decided for our athletes that we've worked with, the majority of whom do Ironman races, so races in the kind of 10 to 17-hour range, that we can maximize your endurance gains by really targeting a 48-hour window. And within that 48-hour window is where we do the majority of the volume work in a given week during your race preparation period. It's not all year round, but it's also not all week long either. And it's also not every single Saturday. There's some unique elements to how we structure the volume inside Endurance Nation that makes it manageable for you as an age group athlete, allows you to still be, a valued family member, a contributor at work, engaged in your other social activities. So that your sport doesn't take over your life. We want endurance sports to be your lifestyle, but we don't want it to be dictating how you live, right? There's a difference there. It's a choice. And we want to make sure that you're on the right side of that decision. So here is our framework for how we encourage our athletes to think about increasing volume when they're on a tight schedule, yet their race aspirations and their goal events are significantly bigger than the average event, right? Okay, so here's how we recommend you build your best 48 hours. So number one, what is your race expectations? Not only what is the race itself, are you doing an Ironman or an ultra race or some long bike ride, whatever it may be, but what are your expectations of that race? Do you want to set a personal best? Do you just want to hit the finish line? Or are you somewhere in between? You want to, do well enough that you can do it with a friend or do a respectable time, which equals time X. Whatever that is, really have a clear sense of that to start with, because that essentially is your one thing from our 4 keys of racing. That one thing is going to help drive the rest of our decision-making processes. Don't get me wrong. 48 hours doing focused volume is actually really challenging, much more challenging than it might seem right now as we're talking. But it really does become an issue as you get fatigued and we're in our race preparation period, which is that last 12-week, last 3-month push to the event itself. So really starting with those expectations. I want to do X or my goal is to do Y. That frames everything and allows us to make a set of decisions that are in alignment with your race expectations. If you're not looking to win the whole dang thing, please don't crush yourself with all this volume. It doesn't need to be done. However, on the flip side, if you do want to win it or do something amazing or whatever your goals may be, we can't achieve that without some, measure of training and sacrifice of your time. So it's a push and a pull, but we'll start with what those expectations are. All right, let's get those and let's write those down. Number 2, let's take a look at your calendar. So before we even start talking about what type of workouts to do, let's take a look at your calendar and see if and where there's flexibility. Now, in a 48-hour window, we have lots of options. Remember, they don't have to be every weekend for the majority of athletes. Overall, it tends to be once a month is a big session, but for the more competitive athletes, sometimes it's once every 3 weeks. We really want to determine, is a Saturday, Sunday your best window? Is it a Friday, Saturday if you've got some flexibility at work? Is it a Sunday, Monday? Perhaps there's like a holiday session in there. If you're really fortunate and can stack things up, you can kind of juggle some of the volume around those elements as well, where we have days off that are already expected, from a regular work schedule or social schedule as well. So really taking a look at the calendar and defining those open areas that fit with your family, fit with your lifestyle, fit with your choices. So we're not constantly taking every Saturday for 12 weeks and having you disappear for 8 hours, right? Instead, we're saying for these 3 weekends or for these 4 weekends, I need to achieve something The other 6 weekends, I'm not doing those big things. I can be around, right? We call this sort of negotiating for what we would call spousal approval units, also known as SAUs, by making smart decisions that advantage you but don't disadvantage others, right? Okay, so then we go ahead and create our agenda for the day. Now, most of the time, the agenda of the work that you're going to do will mirror the work that you plan on doing on race day. So if you're a triathlete, there'll be some swimming, biking, and running, ideally. If you're an ultra runner, we'll be, well, doing a lot of running. If you're ultra running at night, there may be a portion of your run session of this epic weekend that does include some overnight time. Whatever it is you do choose for your agenda, we want to make sure that it's safe but also challenging. And the way to set the appropriate goals is to not only look at the demands of the race, but also to look back over the last 4 to 6 weeks of your training and understand what base level you're working off of. If your long ride, for example, has only been 50 miles, it doesn't make sense to go out and do 2 back-to-back 100-mile rides on a big weekend. That'll just be too much, right? So we need to have something that's commensurate. And since you have multiple weekend opportunities, at a minimum, at least 3 across 3 months, you've got time to build from 1 to 2 to 3 to get that volume to where you need it to be. Remember, volume's not absolute. Your fitness is ultimately the arbiter, as is your schedule. And so we want to use both accordingly. Again, we want to make it as race specific as possible. So if you can mimic the terrain, mimic the conditions, all of that works really well. The last thing that we absolutely do not want to do, like super important here, is we don't want to mimic your race day speed. Okay, so if your race involves any sort of high level of intensity or speed, we will save the majority of that for later in your training block, but also for the race itself. We don't want to go out at the first long session of your season and try and crush yourself at target race paces. That's not what we're here for. We're here to build endurance, and we're doing it by compacting it into a 48-hour window. As a reminder, 48 hours could also be, Friday afternoon until Sunday afternoon. It doesn't have to be, Saturday morning to Sunday night. You can be pretty flexible with the scheduling, and some people get pretty creative doing things on sort of Friday night and then driving that through until Sunday morning, for example, as an option. All right. Okay. Awesome. The next part 4, is doing the prep day. And this is the part that nobody thinks about. They think about the volume, they write these numbers. It's going to be so epic. They tell everyone what they're going to be doing, their teammates, everybody's excited. This looks fantastic. So guilty of this myself. What you really need to have to make that block be successful is to go ahead and put in the prep day. And the prep day is the day before. So if it's a Saturday, Sunday you're looking at, or Friday, Saturday, then the day before. So either Friday or Thursday, the day out, where you do all the logistics, get the food together, get all the drinks ready, plan the route, tell people, get all the gear together, make sure you've got it all set out or organized, everything you need. It makes a massive difference. If you've only got 48 hours only to do the work and you plan on getting a 6-hour ride in, but it's a compromise with your schedule and your family, to not have your things ready and have all that logistical stuff and pumping the tires and finding the food and filling up your car with gas you're trying to drive away, you lose an hour easy, which only frustrates you. And either you take time away from someone else later in the block, or you don't, and you're super mad about your 5 hours, and maybe you make poor decisions while you're training. So that prep day, of all the days, of all the parts here, I think is actually the most important part, where we dive in early and do the logistics around what it is you need to be successful in your 48 hours. And then finally, budgeting recovery. Again, people get so excited about the idea of doing the hard work that very few people actually want to spend the time thinking about how much time do I need to recover. Now, in general, like from a 48-hour rule perspective, we would tell you need about 48 hours of recovery. That would mean 1 day off and 1 day easy, non-weight bearing cycling or swimming or similar activity, rowing, that would allow you to get aerobic, but do so in a way that's going to flush some of the toxins out of your system. Just kind of get your aerobic system working again before you get back sort of to your schedule on that third day. Avoiding recovery is not an efficiency metric. It's not about getting back and getting more work done. If you don't fully recover, you won't be able to actually absorb the work that you've done. And so budgeting that time is actually a very important metric. And so whether you measure your baseline resting heart rate, or you're looking at HRV, the variability, whatever your metric may be, restlessness of sleep or quality sleep, or amount of REM in your sleep, whatever those metrics are, we want to track them and use them as looking at a baseline before you did this block, and then afterwards as well, to see when you normalize. Sometimes you'd be surprised that you may recover quickly, but in some cases you may not. Everyone's different, and you'll handle the workload based on the temperatures and your terrain choices and your nutrition strategies differently than you will in other times of the year. That's why those objective metrics are actually a very important tool. So to recap today, your best 48 hours starts with race expectations. You decide what it's going to be, and we work around those. Number 2, we look at your calendar and decide which parts of these elements work best for you and your family and your work, and your colleagues, your roommates, etc. Number 3, we create that agenda. What are we going to do? When are we going to do it? What happens first? Bike, run, swim. We're going to long run in the morning, some aerobic stuff in the afternoon, then a long run the next morning. We're going to do an overnight long run. What does it look like? That agenda will then determine part 4, which is what you're going to do in your prep day. What needs to get done? What do you need to do? Who do you need to tell what you're doing? What nutrition do you need? Logistics, support, gas, fuel, maps, chargers, all of that stuff has to happen in this prep day. A good prep day makes those 48 hours fly by. And then last but not least, budgeting for recovery. This is more art than science, but still very important that we spend time making good, smart, objective decisions about our fitness and recovery so we can continue the remainder of our race build successfully and have the fitness that we want to have on race day to race to our potential. All right. I hope this is helpful for you. If you've got questions about recovery, hit us up on Facebook or come over to endurancenation.us, create a membership, 30-day money back guarantee. We'd love to connect with you inside our office hours, which I'm currently late for right now. Oops. And we'll connect with you, talk with you, help you sort out your races, and get you connected to other people who are doing epi things just like you. Take care, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. See you.